Hi guys, I did Kenya for my disaster management project. Little overview, Kenya is a developing country on the eastern coast of Africa, lies on the Indian Ocean. It's a population of 46 million people, and the life expectancy is very low. It's less than 56 years due to a multitude of reasons: poor health, malnutrition, diseases. The current disaster management system in Kenya was prompted by the 1997 El Nino floods. In 1998, the National Disaster Operations Center, the NDOC, was formed by Parliament. It's a 24/7 operations center run by the Kenyan government. The hazards of Kenya include mainly hydrological, that's flooding and droughts; biological, the HIV/AIDS epidemic; technological, traffic accidents are a major problem in Kenya; and meteorological, those are wildfires that generally result from dryness after a drought. The 1997 El Nino floods are what prompted the current system. Floods, landslides, and mudslides affected land that was already kind of unstable due to overuse from agriculture, which 80% of the country works in. Crops were destroyed, drinking water was contaminated. This prompted the creation of the NDOC. The hazard of the HIV/AIDS epidemic peaked at 10.5% of the adult population in 1996. Fortunately, antiretroviral treatment and prevention measures have brought it down to about half that as of last year. There are still a lot of obstacles, though. The government promotes the use of condoms and actually distributes them, but people in rural areas can lack access to them. Furthermore, a 2014 health survey found only about half of Kenyan women knew of ways to prevent HIV transmission, so there's a lack of education there. Also, that same survey showed that less than half of women and men with 2 or more partners in the past year even used condoms, so people aren't even recognizing how important it is to use them. The government did respond pretty swiftly once the AIDS epidemic became such a crisis. They formed a council. They opened 4,000 new testing centers within a decade. One major obstacle, though, is a stigma against homosexuals, as same-sex relations are illegal in Kenya, and that prevents at-risk people from getting education and preventive supplies, testing, and treatment if they are positive. A major hazard in Kenya is traffic accidents. According to the World Health Organization, there are no laws for helmet wearing, no restrictions on blood alcohol concentration, or they're not enforced, and there are very few or none child restraint laws. Thousands of Kenyans die in traffic accidents every year. It's a very dangerous place to drive, or be a passenger, or just be a pedestrian. The hazard of climate change has brought cyclical droughts and floods to Kenya. When it's too dry, there are wildfires, and there's a lack of food. Livestock dies because there's no water. And when it's too wet, there's flooding and landslides. Combined with deforestation from overusing land, the land is just degraded. Kenya has a diverse and beautiful but vulnerable range of environments, and increasing climate change effects puts them all at greater risk for hazards. Currently, in this top-down system, the NDOC, run by the Kenyan government, is the focal agency, and it calls on other organizations in the wake of a disaster, including the ones listed here. The problem, there is no prevention. Even the Kenyan government's own Ministry of State website describes its existing system as heavily weighted towards emergency response. These agencies are all reactive and not proactive. There's little official data on weather patterns, even though they're very cyclical. If people don't accept that almost every year there's a new problem, it's hard to plan for them. There's a lack of education about good farming practices to prevent the land from being degraded. There's a lack of food supplies. There's political corruption. Broken infrastructure prevents help from getting to rural areas. There's an anti-gay stigma and a lack of education on HIV prevention. There's government corruption. Kenya has over-relied on outside aid in the wake of disasters. They were founded in 1964, but it wasn't until 1998 that they even developed the first framework for a disaster management system. So it took over 34 years for them to really even start to think about what could happen. In summary, Kenya's diverse ecosystems are also vulnerable due to climate effects, but also man-made problems. Preventive measures are key. Kenya is currently working with its own military to utilize military aircraft to deliver food, have plans in place to evacuate people. But education and prevention is key, and Kenya currently is reactive and not proactive. They wait for something to happen, and there's very little planning involved. So I think that's their major issue, is that there's very little focus on prevention and preparation. That's me, Molly. Thank you for watching. I hope this was a nice brief overview on disaster management in Kenya, and I look forward to seeing all of your presentations.